There are women among us who live as though they are tuned to frequencies invisible to most. They move through the world with a quiet magnetism, an intelligence that can't be captured by IQ tests or standardized measures. This intelligence is not about solving equations or memorizing facts. It is something far older, more mysterious, and more essential. A kind of soul wisdom that resonates beneath the surface of ordinary life. To encounter such a woman is to sense that you are in the presence of a different order of perception. Something in her being awakens something in yours, though you may not understand why. This form of knowing has fascinated depth psychologists for generations. Carl Jung, in particular, gave language to it through his idea of the superior feeling function. Unlike what we often mean by feelings, fleeting moods, reactivity, or sentimentality, this capacity represents a profound ability to read the deeper emotional, psychic, and symbolic currents that shape reality. For some women, this becomes their most developed mode of perception, one that guides their lives with uncanny precision. To understand the gift, however, we must begin where it often first appears, in the realm of energetic perception. The gift of energetic literacy. When a spiritually intelligent woman enters a room, something changes. Conversations may shift, hidden tensions rise to the surface, or a sense of calm settles like mist. This effect has little to do with what she says or does. It emanates from her very presence. She carries within her a kind of living barometer, attuned to subtle vibrations of authenticity, deception, joy, and pain. Most people rely on surface clues, words spoken, facial expressions, tone of voice, to understand others. She does not need these. She perceives the energy underneath. A cheerful neighbor radiates a faint ache she cannot conceal. A couple dining together project the tiniest fracture of discord that no one else notices. A colleague's charming facade feels to her like a mask stretched thin over unspoken motives. To the uninitiated, such perception might sound like paranoia or projection. But for women with this gift, it is simply pattern recognition at a frequency most never access. Their nervous systems operate as finely tuned instruments, sensitive enough to pick up subtle cues that slip past ordinary awareness. The roots of the gift. How does such a rare perceptual ability arise? For many, it is partly ancestral inheritance. Generations of women before them lived in environments where survival demanded acute sensitivity. Grandmothers and great-grandmothers learned to detect danger in a shift of footsteps, to sense anger before it erupted, to read the moods of a household in order to keep their children safe. Over centuries, this vigilance encoded itself into family lineages. It became not just skill, but instinct, an invisible inheritance passed through bloodlines like underground rivers of knowing. Others arrive at this sensitivity through trauma or necessity in their own lives. Hypervigilance developed in childhood can transform, with maturity, into profound perceptual gifts. What once was survival becomes insight. For some, it seems almost genetic, an innate ability to feel the hidden undercurrents of people and spaces. Yet whatever the origin, this gift rarely comes without its thorns. The double-edged sword of perception. To see clearly is also to see what others deny. Spiritually intelligent women often struggle with the burden of their perception. They know when someone is lying before the words finish leaving their lips. They sense hidden grief that the other person may not even recognize in themselves. They can feel when the laughter of a gathering masks unresolved conflict. This accuracy often isolates them. People sense that being in their company means being truly seen. And not everyone is ready for that. Their presence becomes a mirror, reflecting truths that others would rather keep hidden. It is not unusual for such women to be accused of being too much, too sensitive, or even judgmental when, in fact, they are simply perceiving reality with uncomfortable precision. For this reason, they sometimes retreat into solitude, not out of disdain for others, but as self-preservation from the weight of constant energetic bombardment. Crowds overwhelm them, not because they dislike people, but because they are absorbing waves of unspoken information from every soul they encounter, recognizing the experience in everyday life. Have you ever walked into a space and instantly known something was off? Even though everything looked fine, Have you ever felt an immediate aversion to someone you had just met, only to later learn that your instinct was correct? These moments offer a glimpse into the realm of energetic literacy, the skill that spiritually intelligent women embody every day. They cannot always explain how they know, only that they know. To others, this may look like intuition or even magic. In reality, it is a form of intelligence, just not the kind our society typically recognizes. Science may not yet have the tools to measure it, but its reality is undeniable to those who live with it. From sensitivity to service. Though this perceptual gift can be exhausting, it also carries profound potential. At its best, it allows these women to serve as guardians of emotional truth in a world dominated by masks and performances. They become guides for authenticity, helping others strip away illusions and confront what lies beneath. In relationships, their sensitivity allows them to sense unspoken needs. In communities, they become anchors of honesty, refusing to collude with deception. In healing professions, whether as counselors, artists, teachers, or healers, their ability to feel what others cannot becomes medicine for wounded souls. Yet to wield this gift wisely, they must learn boundaries. Without them, they drown in the suffering and duplicity they detect everywhere. With them, they become mirrors and oracles, not harsh judges, but compassionate truth-tellers. Energetic sensitivity as a calling. This first trait, the ability to perceive unseen energies, is not a quirk or accident. It is a calling. It asks women to accept their role as witnesses of truth, even when the world resists. It asks them to carry the ancestral wisdom embedded in their bones, even when it feels like too much. It asks them to trust what they feel, even when logic cannot explain it. In Jungian terms, this is the superior feeling function operating at its highest expression. It is not weakness, not hysteria, not over-emotionality, as patriarchal culture has so often claimed. It is refined perception, a form of intelligence as valid as logic or reason, though infinitely more mysterious. For the spiritually intelligent woman, this gift becomes the foundation upon which all other traits rest. Without it, the rest of her spiritual intelligence cannot take root. With it, she begins to embody the role of barometer, oracle, and truth-bearer in a world that desperately needs her clarity. As we step deeper into this exploration, consider your own experiences. Have you ever known something about someone without evidence, only later to discover you were right? Have you ever felt drained by crowds because of the sheer weight of invisible signals pressing in? Have you ever sensed tension between people before they spoke a word? If so, you may already recognize this first trait within yourself. It is not paranoia. It is not weakness. It is the beginning of a rare intelligence, one that cannot be quantified, yet shapes lives and destinies in profound ways. This is the first door into the world of spiritually intelligent women. Beyond it lie deeper mysteries, their relationship with the collective unconscious, their sacred solitude, their alchemy of suffering, their mastery of silent communication, and their magnetism for synchronicity. But it all begins here, with the gift of energetic literacy. A blessing and a burden, a thorn and a rose, the first sign of a woman whose soul is tuned to dimensions unseen. If the first sign of spiritual intelligence appears as an uncanny sensitivity to energies, the second reveals itself through an even more mysterious channel, an intimate relationship with the collective unconscious. Carl Jung described the collective unconscious as the vast reservoir of archetypes, images, and symbols that lie beneath the surface of individual awareness. It is not personal memory but universal memory, a psychic inheritance shared across humanity. Myths, dreams, spiritual visions, synchronicities, all arise from this underground well. Most people only glimpse it in fleeting moments. A dream that feels strangely important. A coincidence that seems meaningful. An image that lingers long after waking. But spiritually intelligent women live with the door to this realm permanently ajar. Dreamers who carry messages. Dreams, for most people, are confusing scraps of memory stitched into surreal narratives. For these women, dreams are conversations with the unconscious. They often dream in potent symbols. a snake shedding its skin, a flood sweeping through a house, a child wandering into unknown forests, days or weeks later. Events unfold in waking life that mirror these dreams with uncanny precision. These dreams are not entertainment for the mind, but oracles of becoming. They reveal hidden dynamics, point toward healing, or signal collective shifts. A woman who dreams of rising waters may later find herself helping a friend through emotional overwhelm. Another who dreams of a bird breaking free from a cage may be on the verge of liberating herself from an old relationship. Unlike others who dismiss their dreams as random, spiritually intelligent women learn to treat them with reverence. They keep journals by their bedsides, waking to capture fragments of images before they dissolve into daylight. Over time, patterns emerge. They realize their dreams are not only personal but collective, carrying themes relevant to families, communities, or even entire cultures. Synchronicities, the universe in conversation. Beyond dreams, their daily lives become saturated with synchronicities, meaningful coincidences that defy logic. To others, these moments might seem like chance. To them, they are communications from a deeper intelligence orchestrating reality behind the scenes. Consider the woman who keeps seeing images of owls in unexpected places, on a billboard, in a book she randomly opens, in a conversation overheard. Days later, she meets someone who guides her into wisdom studies, the owl's archetypal domain, or the woman who keeps noticing the number 1111 until she finally recognizes it as confirmation of alignment with her deeper purpose. These synchronicities operate like a navigation system for the soul. They guide spiritually intelligent women toward opportunities, warn them of dangers, and reassure them that they are walking the path designed for them. While skeptics dismiss such patterns as coincidence, these women know better. They understand that the universe does not speak in linear arguments, but in symbols, echoes, and repeating signs. They have developed the inner ears to listen. This relationship with the unconscious does not remain abstract. Spiritually intelligent, women serve as translators between the symbolic and the practical. A dream of water becomes guidance for emotional healing. A recurring animal symbol becomes a call to embody its archetypal qualities. A myth that appears in meditation becomes a map for navigating real-life struggles. In this way, they make the invisible usable. They do not get lost in mystical fog. They learn to ground symbolic insights into practical wisdom, offering guidance for themselves and those around them. Their translation work often manifests in art, writing, healing, or teaching. Through their creations, they give form to the formless, shaping invisible truths into visible expressions. The permeable boundary. Jung observed that some people possess a permeable ego boundary, a psychic openness that allows access to deeper realms of consciousness. Spiritually intelligent women embody this. They can sink into inner worlds without losing their anchor in outer reality. They can hear whispers from the unconscious without mistaking them for delusions. This permeability is a delicate balance. Too much, and one risks being flooded with archetypal material, confusing symbolic messages with literal ones. Too little, and the channel closes, cutting off the wisdom flowing from beneath. Spiritually intelligent women cultivate the discipline to remain porous yet grounded, receptive yet discerning. Service through synchronicity. Their relationship with the collective unconscious is not merely personal. It carries a collective responsibility. Because they remain open to this deeper well, they often find themselves in the right place at the right time to offer exactly what someone else needs. It might be a simple word spoken at the perfect moment. It might be a dream shared that unlocks another's healing. It might be their very presence, arriving coincidentally when someone is in crisis. From the outside, it looks like chance. To them, it feels like service through synchronicity, life arranging itself around deeper intelligence. In this way, they become bridges between the visible and invisible, material and spiritual, conscious and unconscious. Their lives are threaded with mythic significance, not because they try to appear mystical, but because they live in alignment with a deeper current that continuously calls them forward. The burden of symbolic vision. Yet again, the gift is double-edged. Living with open channels to the unconscious can be overwhelming. The constant flood of dreams, signs, and synchronicities can leave them questioning what is meaningful and what is noise. Without discernment, they risk becoming lost in mystical inflation, believing every coincidence is a cosmic command, every dream a prophecy. The spiritually intelligent woman must therefore develop filters. She learns to test messages against her intuition, her body's knowing, and the unfolding of real-life events. She does not chase every sign blindly but cultivates patience, allowing truth to reveal itself over time. This discernment separates authentic guidance from wishful thinking. It anchors her symbolic experiences in reality, preventing her from drifting into fantasy. The world as a sacred text. Ultimately, spiritually intelligent women begin to perceive the world itself as a sacred text written in the language of symbols. Every encounter, every image, every coincidence becomes part of a larger story. To live in this way is to move through reality as though inside a living myth. This does not mean they escape ordinary life. They still work, parent, cook, and manage responsibilities. But underneath, another dimension hums. The grocery store becomes a temple of encounters. A stranger's smile becomes a message. A bird landing on a windowsill becomes reassurance that they are seen by forces beyond comprehension. This is not superstition. It is participation in the symbolic web of reality. A web that Jung, shamans, mystics, and poets have all tried to describe in their own ways. This second trait, their intimacy with the collective, unconscious, marks spiritually intelligent women as living bridges between inner and outer, visible and invisible. They walk through dreams awake. They live guided by synchronicities. They translate archetypal language into practical insight. For them, reality is not inert matter but living myth, and they are its interpreters. This trait is not something they earn or choose. It chooses them. It arrives as both gift and burden, demanding they balance openness with discernment, mysticism with groundedness. And it is precisely this relationship with the unconscious that prepares them for the next stage of their journey, the cultivation of sacred solitude. For only in silence and withdrawal can they metabolize the flood of symbols, dreams, and messages they receive. If the first gift of spiritually intelligent women is the ability to read energies, and the second is their intimate dialogue with the collective unconscious, the third emerges in a quieter but equally essential form: sacred solitude. In a culture that glorifies visibility, productivity, and constant connection, solitude is often misunderstood. It is seen as loneliness, antisocial behavior, or a flaw in one's social skills. But for spiritually intelligent women, solitude is not emptiness. It is fullness. It is the space where transformation ripens, where the sediment of daily life settles and clarity rises. This solitude is not accidental. It is chosen, cultivated, and fiercely protected. Silence as a crucible. Spiritually intelligent women instinctively understand something modern society resists. The deepest changes happen in silence. Noise distracts, opinions scatter, and constant engagement fractures the soul. Silence, however, gathers the self back into wholeness. When these women withdraw, they are not running away from life. They are entering the crucible where life's raw material is transmuted. Their solitude becomes a laboratory of the soul, a sacred workshop where they process experiences, integrate insights, and metabolize both pain and beauty. It is in solitude that the dreams they receive can be decoded. It is in solitude that synchronicities reveal their patterns. It is in solitude that their sensitivity to energies finds grounding. Without these retreats into silence, their gifts would overwhelm them. The rhythm of withdrawal and return. To outsiders, their periodic need for withdrawal can be puzzling. Family members may interpret it as rejection. Friends may assume they are depressed. Colleagues may think they are unreliable. But spiritually intelligent women live by a different rhythm, one that alternates between engagement and withdrawal, service and replenishment, outward giving and inward restoring. This rhythm mirrors nature itself. Just as the moon waxes and wanes, just as the seasons move from flourishing to dormancy, so too do these women follow cycles of retreat and return. To demand of them constant visibility is to deny their very nature. In their solitude, they gather strength. When they re-emerge, they carry new insights, renewed energy, and deeper wisdom to offer. What looks like inactivity is in fact gestation. Practices of sacred solitude. During these times, spiritually intelligent women rarely distract themselves with endless entertainment. They do not retreat to escape, but to engage more deeply with what matters. Their solitude becomes fertile through practices such as journaling, where streams of insight surface onto the page; meditation, which clears the clutter of thought and deepens presence; creative expression, whether painting, music, writing, or dance, channels the unconscious into form; contemplative silence, simply sitting, allowing life to speak through stillness; communion with nature, where the quiet language of the earth replenishes their souls. Through these practices, solitude becomes not a void, but a sanctuary. It is not isolation that wounds, but solitude that heals. Distinguishing isolation from solitude. One of the hardest lessons for these women is learning to distinguish between isolation as wound and solitude as medicine. Isolation happens when circumstances, pain, or fear cut them off from others against their will. Solitude, by contrast, is a conscious choice, a turning inward for the sake of renewal. Both may look similar from the outside, one woman sitting alone, but the inner experience is radically different. Spiritually intelligent women must learn this distinction early. If they confuse their sacred solitude with isolation, they may feel guilty, selfish, or ashamed of their need for retreat. If they confuse isolation for sacred solitude, they may mistake wounding for wisdom. Discernment is key. The pressure of an extroverted culture. Western culture in particular prizes extroversion. It rewards those who are constantly visible, endlessly networked, perpetually on. Solitude is framed as deficiency, a problem to be solved. For spiritually intelligent women, this cultural message can be suffocating. They may feel pressured to suppress their need for silence, to conform to endless busyness, to ignore the inner call for retreat. Doing so, however, drains them. Their sensitivity becomes distorted, their clarity foggy, their gifts dulled. It takes courage to honor solitude in a world that mistrusts it. These women must often resist external expectations in order to remain faithful to their inner rhythm. They learn to say no, to disappoint others, to draw boundaries, not because they reject life, but because they choose a deeper way of living it. Solitude as spiritual discipline. Over time, spiritually intelligent women come to view solitude not merely as preference but as discipline. It becomes a non-negotiable practice, like prayer or meditation. They know that without it, they lose themselves. With it, they are able to return to the world with their gifts intact. Jung called this process individuation, the journey of becoming one's true self, separate from the collective demands of family, culture, or society. Individuation requires withdrawal. Without solitude, the authentic self cannot emerge. Spiritually intelligent women sense this instinctively. They honor solitude as part of their soul's curriculum. Solitude as a source of creativity. What often surprises outsiders is how creative these women become in solitude. To them, silence is not emptiness but fertile ground. Many of history's most profound poets, artists, and mystics lived lives marked by solitude, their creativity flowing directly from time spent alone. Spiritually intelligent women carry on this tradition. Their retreats into silence often result in bursts of artistic expression, innovative solutions, or visionary insights. What looks like withdrawal is often the gestation of brilliance. This is why their solitude is not selfish. It ultimately serves the collective. By withdrawing to refill their wells, they return with treasures to share. The courage to be misunderstood. Perhaps the greatest challenge of sacred solitude is the courage it requires to be misunderstood. People may never fully understand why these women need silence. They may judge, criticize, or mock. But spiritually intelligent women learn that misunderstanding is a small price to pay for authenticity. Over time, they stop seeking external validation. They no longer explain or defend their solitude. They simply live it, trusting that those meant to understand will understand, and those who do not will fall away. Sacred solitude is not a luxury for spiritually intelligent women. It is a necessity, a lifeline, the soil in which their wisdom grows. Without it, they drown in the noise of the world. With it, they emerge radiant, centered, and ready to serve. Their solitude teaches us a vital lesson, that depth cannot be cultivated in constant distraction, that authenticity requires silence, that healing happens not only in connection, but also in stillness. If you recognize yourself here, if you've ever felt guilty for needing more time alone, if you've ever been shamed for withdrawing, if you've ever felt the conflict between solitude and social expectation, know this: your solitude is not weakness. It is your strength. It is your inner sanctuary, your sacred laboratory, your meeting place with the divine. And it is precisely this rhythm of solitude and return that prepares spiritually intelligent women for their next task, the alchemy of pain into wisdom. For only those who have faced themselves in silence can descend into their own darkness and emerge with treasures for the world. The journey of the spiritually intelligent woman is never free from suffering. In fact, suffering is often the very crucible that forges her gifts. If solitude is her laboratory, then pain is her raw material. Her fourth invisible trait is her ability to take wounds that might destroy others and transmute them into wisdom, compassion, and healing for herself and those around her. Carl Jung called this process the transcendent function, the capacity of the psyche to hold opposing forces in tension until something entirely new emerges. In the hands of spiritually intelligent women, this becomes alchemy, the ancient art of transforming lead into gold, despair into hope, wounds into wisdom, the descent into the underworld. Every spiritually intelligent woman, at some point, must make a descent into her personal underworld. This descent may come through trauma, grief, betrayal, illness, or loss. To others, such experiences appear devastating, life-shattering. And they are. But for these women, devastation is not the end. It is the beginning of initiation. Rather than numbing themselves or running from pain, they face it. They sit with the raw ache of loss, the burning of betrayal, the suffocation of despair. They do not pretend it is not happening. They do not bypass it with hollow positivity. They allow themselves to feel the full weight of their suffering, trusting that within it lies hidden treasure. This courage to face what others avoid is the first step in alchemy. The archetype of the wounded healer. Jung, and later many depth psychologists, identified a recurring archetype, the wounded healer. This is the one who gains the ability to heal others precisely through their own wounds. The wound, far from being a disqualification, becomes the very initiation into service. Spiritually intelligent women embody this archetype. Their traumas become qualifications. Their heartbreaks become initiations. Their losses become the soil from which compassion grows. They are not naive healers, offering platitudes from untouched lives. They are seasoned healers, speaking from the trenches of their own survival. When they sit with someone in pain, they do not offer empty reassurances. They offer presence born from having walked through fire themselves. Their scars become living proof that transformation is possible. Holding opposites in tension. At the heart of their alchemy lies Jung's transcendent function, the ability to hold opposites without collapsing into one side or the other. Where others may cling to light and deny shadow, or drown in shadow and forget the light, spiritually intelligent women learn to hold both. They can embrace joy while still acknowledging grief. They can honor strength without denying vulnerability. They can accept both love and anger toward the same person, both fear and faith in the same moment. By refusing to resolve contradictions prematurely, they allow a third reality to emerge, something deeper, wiser, and more whole. This synthesis is the gold of alchemy. Pain as teacher. Over time, spiritually intelligent women come to see pain not as an enemy but as a teacher. Pain shows them where false identities must be shed, where old wounds demand healing, where illusions no longer serve. Pain humbles the ego, strips away pretenses, and reveals what truly matters. Rather than avoiding it, they lean into it. Not recklessly, but courageously. They ask, what is this pain teaching me? What part of myself is asking to be transformed? What wisdom lies hidden here? Through this questioning, their suffering becomes sacred curriculum. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every loss becomes material for growth. Nothing is wasted. Scars as sacred sites. With time, the wounds that once felt unbearable become sacred. Sites, pilgrimage destinations. Within the psyche, these scars hold memory but not as sources of shame. Instead, they become sources of strength and wisdom. When others see only brokenness, spiritually intelligent women see survival. When others see only damage, they see initiation. Their scars remind them of their resilience and their capacity to transmute suffering into something meaningful. In this way, scars cease to be signs of weakness. They become marks of sacred authority, the responsibility of transformation. However, this transformation carries responsibility. Once you have turned your suffering into wisdom, you are no longer free to pretend you are powerless. Once you have walked through fire and emerged intact, you carry medicine that others need. Spiritually intelligent women often find themselves drawn to serve, whether as therapists, artists, mentors, healers, or simply as compassionate presences in everyday life. Their lives become offerings. Their stories become lanterns for those still stumbling in darkness. This service is not about ego. It is about recognizing that wisdom gained through suffering is not meant to be hoarded. It is meant to be shared. Resisting spiritual bypassing. Yet this alchemical process requires vigilance. There is always the temptation to bypass pain, to rush into forgiveness, to plaster over wounds with affirmations, to pretend healing is complete before it is. Spiritually intelligent women resist this temptation. They know true transformation cannot be rushed. It requires patience, honesty, and the courage to sit in discomfort until it yields its wisdom. They learn that healing is not the absence of wounds, but the integration of wounds into wholeness. They stop striving to be unscarred and instead honor their scars as part of their sacred story. Service through story. One of the most powerful ways spiritually intelligent women transmute suffering is through storytelling. By articulating their journeys through words, art, song, or silent presence, they transform private pain into collective medicine. A woman who has known grief becomes a guide for others who grieve. A woman who has endured betrayal becomes a voice of truth for others navigating deception. A woman who has wrestled with despair becomes a companion for those who cannot yet see the light. In sharing their stories, they do not glorify their suffering. They dignify it. They show that it was not meaningless, that it carried wisdom, that it can serve the healing of others. The paradox of strength. Perhaps the most striking result of this alchemy is the paradox. It produces the more wounded they have been, the stronger they become. But their strength is not hard or brittle. It is supple, compassionate, resilient. It is strength born not from denial but from integration. Others may look at them and wonder how they survived what they did. They survived not by ignoring their pain but by transforming it. Their strength is not armor that hides weakness, but a radiance that emerges from having befriended it. The alchemy of suffering is not glamorous. It is grueling, humbling, and often lonely. Yet it is one of the defining marks of spiritually intelligent women. They take what should have destroyed them and make it into wisdom. They turn their wounds into medicine. They embody the archetype of the wounded healer, offering living proof that transformation is possible. If you recognize yourself here, if you have suffered deeply and yet found yourself emerging with greater compassion, insight, or strength, know that you are not alone. Your pain is not meaningless. It is part of your initiation. And when the world asks, why you? Why this path? The answer is simple. Because your pain carries medicine not only for you, but for others. And because in a world terrified of suffering, those who can walk through it with courage become invaluable guides. From this alchemical fire emerges the fifth gift, the ability to communicate, not only with words but through presence itself. For those who have transmuted suffering into wisdom, discover that their very being becomes healing, even in silence. The final invisible trait of spiritually intelligent women is the most subtle, yet perhaps the most transformative. the power of presence itself. By the time they have learned to read energies, commune with the unconscious, honor solitude and transmute suffering, these women begin to radiate something that cannot be taught in any school or captured in any manual. They embody a presence that communicates more than words ever could. The language beyond words. Spiritually intelligent women know how to use words with care. Many of them are gifted writers, teachers, poets, or speakers. But their deepest communication transcends language. It lives in their tone of voice, their silences, their gaze, their gestures, their very way of being. When they enter a room, the energy shifts. When they listen, people feel truly heard, perhaps for the first time. When they speak, even ordinary words carry resonance, as though something larger is speaking through them. This is not charisma in the conventional sense. It is not manipulation or performance. It is authenticity so deep that it becomes magnetic. People feel safer, calmer, more alive in their presence, not because of what they say, but because of who they are. Presence is healing. For those who have undergone the alchemy of suffering, presence itself becomes medicine. They no longer need to fix, advise, or rescue. Their calm, grounded presence is healing enough. In therapy, this is known as the therapeutic alliance. The idea that healing happens less through techniques and more through the quality of the relationship. Spiritually intelligent women intuitively embody this. Their compassion, patience, and authenticity create a field where others feel free to open, grieve, and grow. Sometimes the most profound thing they offer is not advice, but simple presence. A steady hand held in silence. An unhurried listening. A gaze that says, I see you. I am with you. You are not alone. Synchronicity as communication. Alongside presence, spiritually intelligent women communicate through another mysterious channel, synchronicity. Carl Jung coined this term to describe meaningful coincidences. Events that carry personal or collective significance despite lacking causal explanation. To many, synchronicities feel random or uncanny. To these women, they feel like another form of conversation between the visible and invisible worlds. They are skilled at noticing patterns, the same symbol, appearing in dreams and waking life, a book falling open at the exact page they needed, a chance meeting that delivers the answer to a prayer. They do not dismiss these as accidents. They pay attention, listen, and respond. For them, synchronicity is not superstition. It is a subtle language through which the unconscious, the collective psyche, or the divine communicates. It confirms they are on the right path, or redirects them when they stray. Embodied integrity. Another reason their presence communicates so powerfully is that they embody integrity. They do not speak one way and live another. They do not preach what they refuse to practice. Their inner life and outer life are congruent. This congruence is rare in a world of performance and pretense. It makes their presence trustworthy. People may not always agree with them, but they sense they are genuine. And this genuineness communicates more than polished words ever could. The quiet influence. Because of this presence, spiritually intelligent women often exert influence without trying. They may not seek positions of power, but their wisdom naturally attracts seekers. People come to them for guidance, sometimes without even knowing why. Their leadership is not loud but quiet, not domineering but invitational. They lead not by control but by example, not by force but by resonance. Others feel drawn to align with them because their presence awakens something in their own souls. Presence as resistance. In a culture addicted to speed, noise, and distraction, simple presence becomes a radical act. To sit in silence without reaching for a phone, to listen deeply without rushing to respond, to move through the world without constant agitation, these are revolutionary practices. Spiritually intelligent women, through their grounded presence, resist the cultural pull toward fragmentation. They embody wholeness. They remind others that there is another way to live, slower, deeper, more aligned with the rhythms of soul, the radiance of stillness. As they mature, many spiritually intelligent women discover that their greatest gift is not what they do, but who they are. Their very being radiates stillness, compassion, and wisdom. Like a candle in a dark room, they do not need to announce themselves. Their light is evident by its effect. People breathe more easily around them. Conflicts soften. Hope returns. Inspiration stirs. This radiance is not effortful. It is the natural result of years spent attuning to energy, listening to dreams, honoring solitude, and transforming wounds. Presence becomes the fruit of all previous traits. Communication through creativity. While presence is their most silent form of communication, many spiritually intelligent women also express themselves through creative forms that bypass rational defenses. Art, poetry, music, movement, ritual. All of these become vehicles for communication that touches the soul directly. A poem may say what ordinary language cannot. A painting may transmit an archetype more vividly than a lecture. A dance may embody healing without a single word spoken. Their creativity is not for entertainment, but for evocation, for awakening something deep in those who encounter it. The invisible web. Finally, spiritually intelligent women sense themselves as part of an invisible web of communication. Their prayers, meditations, and intentions ripple outward in ways unseen but felt. They may never know whose lives were touched, whose despair was lifted, whose path was illuminated because of their silent offerings. They trust that presence is not confined to physical proximity. It radiates across distance, woven through the collective field of consciousness. This is why many of them feel kinship with other women they may never meet. They sense the web connecting them, holding them, transmitting wisdom across time and space. The power of spiritually intelligent women does not lie in external status, titles, or recognition. It lies in their presence, their ability to embody wisdom, to communicate through silence as much as speech, to recognize synchronicity as a language of the soul, to live in integrity so that every gesture, every glance, every pause becomes a form of communication. If you recognize yourself here, if people have ever told you they feel calmer around you, if you notice patterns others dismiss as coincidence, if your silence sometimes speaks louder than words, know that you are embodying this final invisible trait. Your presence itself is medicine. Your being is communication. Your life is synchronicity in motion. And in this way, spiritually intelligent women remind us all, wisdom is not only what you know, or even what you do. Wisdom is what you are. If these words have stirred something deep within you, if you recognize even a spark of yourself in the gifts and wisdom of spiritually intelligent women, don't let this journey end here. Subscribe now to continue exploring the invisible threads of feminine spiritual intelligence, to uncover deeper insights from depth psychology, and to connect with a community of women walking this path of presence, transformation, and awakening. Your subscription is more than a click. It's a commitment to honor your own gifts, to nurture your inner wisdom, and to participate in a conversation that celebrates the unseen intelligence within every woman. Join us, and let your journey of awakening continue.